7 o'clock. Okay, I'd like to start by having the opening of the snow removal bids, and I'm gonna let Jeff, do you want to take this over?
Okay.
We actually have 4 bids tonight.
So I'll just open them up and read the relevant pieces from the bid proposal form.
We will not make a decision tonight, we will just read them
Okay,
When are you gonna make a decision?
by next Monday.
Next Monday?
so this is Chesterfield Associates. And we have a proposal of the year one annual cost breakdown of $227,151. Works out to a rate per mile of $8,950 per mile. The price per hour for snowbank removal, when it's directed, is $150 per hour. But I'll note that this is for just 1 year, not for 3. So that's a significant factor. And I'll just note a little bit about the equipment. There's some GMC trucks. The most recent is 2014. So the equipment looks kind of on the old side. A 25-yard loader, 2.5-yard loader, backhoe loader, snow fighter. And the personnel are coming from Westport Island, Wiscasset, Woolwich. Okay, so that's,
Whose bid was that?
that was
Chesterfield.
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 This is Holbrook. Okay. Holbrook has bid first year $190,350. Second year $194,157. The third year is $198,040.14. So it's a rate per mile. First year $7,500 per mile. Second year $7,650 per mile. Third year $7,803 per mile. The price per hour for snowbank removal is $200. And the equipment, there are various again trucks, Fords. Looks like a 2019 is the most recent. They range in age from an F800 1991. So there's a range of equipment as well with this one. The people listed are coming from Edgecombe and Dresden and Woolwich. This is a proposal coming from Creamer and Sons Landworks.
Coming from who?
Kramer
And Sons Landworks.
and Sons Land Works.
Okay, so this proposal lays out the kind of the years, but it doesn't have a total price for the year. It has a price per mile. But we can calculate the price per year from that. The rate for the first year is $8,000 per mile. Second year is $8,200 per mile. Third year is $8,500 per mile. The price per hour for snow removal is for snowbank removal was $140. And the equipment is again another range of equipment, plowing Sanders from 2004 to 2018. So people are coming from Woolwich and Westport Island. Yeah. And the fourth one is from. I'll get there.
That didn't have a name on it.
Okay. There you go.
Surprise,
Pardon?
a surprise.
Well, let me just make sure I get the. So this is Dale Reno Construction, that's what the DAR, yeah. So the cost breakdown, rate per mile for year one is $6,250 a mile. Year two is $6,550 a mile. Year three is $7,000 per mile. And the rate for snow removal, for snowbank removal was $125 an hour. The equipment again ranges in age. The most recent is a 2022 Ford F-350. Again, loaders and Caterpillar loaders, John Deere loaders, Caterpillar loaders, various other Ford vehicles are proposed. The personnel are from Woolwich, Bath, Wiscasset, and Brunswick. So we have four proposals. I think we really appreciate proposal. What we would plan to do is we'll take these, we have a working session scheduled for Wednesday at 3 o'clock, where we can discuss discuss the proposals and go through them. Again, we'll be looking at the price, we'll be looking at the equipment, the references. There's a chance to look at references. We'll look at the different criteria as identified in the request for proposals. But I think we really appreciate the proposals and the responsiveness. So thank you very much for your bids. We will be back to you. And as Donna said, we'd like to make this decision by next Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen just said, you back.
Yep. I knew you were heading out. That's why I was gonna wait a minute.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, we'd like to talk about the warrants and the minutes, and then we'll go into a shellfish ordinance meeting, the hearing that we have scheduled here. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the warrants, payroll number 97 for $2,272.26. Do I have a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, accounts payable number 96. I'd like to make a motion to accept it for $23,103.45. And I just want to say that's the last of the Right Landing loan. So that is paid off. Feels really good. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Payroll number 98 for $1,737.79. Do I have a?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, and the last one, warrant item, accounts payable number 99. I'd like to make a motion to accept it for $4,568.64. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, that was quick. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of 5/1/23. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have a shellfish ordinance hearing. Lincoln
Yeah,
or Julie?
thank you, City Shellfish Committee Chairman. We've been revising our ordinance and renewing everything, and Julie's been on hand doing most of the work, so I'll let her stand up and speak on behalf of the committee.
Thank you. If anyone has any questions, we put together a draft ordinance for the Shellfish Committee, for the Shellfish Ordinance. We are if anybody would like a draft copy, April has copies of the new ordinance. The new ordinance takes the old ordinance and it refines it and makes it more robust. We have added more shellfish species to the ordinance. So that covers us as we go forward with our shellfish harvest and seeding as we add more species into the flats. It also allows us in the future, if we decide to introduce species, if also with more and more oysters are floating out there from anybody who is doing oyster harvesting. If they get out there and get free and float, someone can then pick free oysters because otherwise they would not be able to. Mussels are not in the ordinance because by law, those are regulated by state. We also have put in more enforcement for the ability to enforce any regulations and also have in there the ability to make sure that with licensing, we have the, excuse me, I'm just really dry in here tonight.
Just water.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm just dry. That we also have the ability to have our conservation credits in there. We have also made it easier for the clerk. We have requested with DMR. So for the clerk, the licensing period will also go with the town's fiscal year. We are adding in an additional license for the town. We are adding in the ability to sell 3-day recreational licenses. DMR requires us that however many we add in for non-residential, non-residents, we add in for residents. So what that means is we're going to be adding in 16 3-day licenses. And the reason being is we have found that we are traditionally been only given 4 non-residential recreational licenses. If someone comes in May and buys up those 4 non-residential licenses because they're here visiting before July 4th, and they're just here for a weekend, then we've lost the ability for non-residents to harvest for the entire year. So then let's say you had a grandchild come and want to try it, then you can't because there's no more licenses left. So we're going to be offering 3-day licenses. And that way there'll be 16, 8 and 8, because we have to offer equal. And so anybody can then come in and just try it for a period of 3 days. We'll still have the 4 year-round non-residential licenses. So that way, if you know you have a grandchild who spends the entire summer with you, or a friend, or someone who comes here from out of state who is a non-residential, who is a regular, we can still sell the 4 non-residential licenses. But this allows us not to lose our licensing when people come or stay at the inn and say, I want to try it just for one time or one day. But we did ask for the licensing period to change because it makes it a lot easier for reporting purposes. Am I missing anything here? Again, we also, as I said, we did put in the conservation credits in there because we want to make sure that people who have really worked with us and harvested in the commercial realm, who have put in the time actually doing the conservation credits, coming out and helping us with the seeding and the surveying, actually do get their first come, first serve versus someone who comes in and says, hi, I would like a commercial license if it's never done any work. We want it to be on that first come, first serve. This ordinance that we are putting forth to the town also is based on DMR language. So none of the language was something that us as a committee has written ourselves. We actually went through and used their standard language and their forms. They went through and worked with us weekly and went through it, corrected it, made sure that it was up to par with DMR standards. What will happen is once the town approves it, it's still not fully enacted until the commissioner at DMR puts his stamp of approval on it. But that is where we're going with that. The other thing is we currently have licenses right now. Our licensing period is May 1st through April 30th. They say they'll work with us for that gap period next year, but we're not advertising it just yet. We can't, because until this is enacted, once we know, they'll work with us to be able to extend or help us with that gap period, but we don't want to do anything until we know that this is approved.
The ordinance has to be voted in and passed for.
Right, and then it goes to DMR.
And then they'll work with us. So, but if anyone has any questions, we did put in all the, another thing we added was also all the definitions, which were missing as well. Which I know was missing on other ordinances as well, so.
So Julie and Lincoln, one of the things that I was thinking about the other day on another issue, that it would be nice, especially issues where it's sort of like a bigger issue and people might want to grapple with it a little bit. About putting like a one pager, like we talked about that with the landfill issue that we have, that just having a one pager available at the town meeting.
Mhm.
And I mean, just a one pager, just highlighting some of the things that you just say, this is a change that was made, or change that was made.
Yeah.
That way people can pick it up and look at it ahead of time. Especially those that aren't auditory, really rather see it and be able to mull it over a little bit, maybe while they're waiting for the meeting or whatever. But if you would be willing to do
Yeah,
that,
we can do it.
yeah, and just like a one pager, nothing more, not the whole ordinance, because probably most people don't want to. It's not the whole ordinance that they want to read, they want to know what's the difference.
They
how
also
do
want to
things
know
change.
what affects them personally. And
Exactly,
Most likely
yep.
what affects them personally is the licensing.
Yeah, the recreational
The time
licenses
period,
and, yep,
And the fact that there's not a change in the number of licenses, but we're adding the 3-day licenses as
Right.
well.
and maybe the oysters piece too.
Well, the
Yeah.
the types of
Right.
species that they can
Yep.
actually get.
Yep.
And also the that there's more enforcement in there.
I don't know that they'll want to know that, but
No, but they should, because what we're gonna do is make sure, because right now, for instance, you guys went and did McCarty Cove this weekend.
Yeah.
We wanna make sure that people are not going to areas where they're closed.
yep, I know that was an issue in the past, trying to monitor things, especially when they were closed, so that's good. Yeah, so if you guys are willing to do that, that would be great.
Yeah.
Just, I'm thinking anybody that has like a bigger issue, will just have something really simple to vote on, or
Okay.
to look at.
Right,
We can do that.
yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Any thoughts, Jonathan?
No, again, I just think it sounds excellent, like good work done by the committee. So I think we're, we look forward to resounding applause at town meeting.
I also want you to know that the grant was on the news today, so everything's been granted.
Now we-
Why don't you just, again, for everyone's benefit, because we didn't have it carried in the press before, maybe you could announce that grant.
The Westport Island Shellfish Committee was granted $3,800 for the committee, and we're gonna be using that for green crab predators. And we're gonna be trapping green crabs in McCarty Cove. We have already seeded, we put in 100,000 seed in there so far, and we'll probably do one more seeding after this past survey we did last Saturday. There was an enormous amount of clams in there, and if we can get one more generation in there, I think that flat will be well set up if we can keep the crabs out. So that's what we're working on.
And were you using, what are you gonna be doing with the crabs?
Well, we're gonna be taking those down to Kyle down, using them for fertilizer.
So I'll be seeing a lot of green crabs.
I think a lot of people have eaten out of the green crabs too.
Well. No, excellent, great work and good effort.
And so now Neil can actually contact me to
Yeah.
talk about, trying to get some help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep. Okay, great. Any questions or thoughts for these two?
You have a map, some kind of a brochure It means we're on Westport Island, you can fish and for what?
They are, the maps on DMR's website, the problem is it keeps changing. So it's hard to keep having, a specific map. We used to have one, but the problem was it keeps changing. Because of the closure. And so, I mean, every time it rains, it changes. So the best thing is actually to go to DMR's website and, check it before anyone goes out at a period of time, because, if there's an inch of rain, one side of the island could be closed, but maybe not the other. It just depends on what.
Yeah, okay.
The EMR scientists actually told the Shellfish Committee not to have a map, but the diggers. They could leave us liable for it.
The minute you have something, hard copy of something, it becomes permanent,
Can you
yeah.
just do a link from the town website to the appropriate spot on DMR, so.
It should be on the website.
Okay, because that would make it easier than having to hunt through.
It'll be on our license, too, on the website, we post it on our license.
It is, but I know it's on the website, and, it's also on the notices that should get posted every time there's a closure.
Yep.
So.
All right, on to citizens issues. Okay, we have two hands up. George,
Have you signed a contract with the Maine Certified Assessor yet?
no, that's actually one of the items that is down below. No, we've been working to do that. And I know there's some personal problems that he's dealing with, and so we have not been able to do that. It's definitely on our radar. Yeah. And that pretty much covered that. It's actually down at the very bottom here. So, yeah. Do you have any thoughts on how to get a hold of him? I know he actually asked to wait to do the assessing until May because of family problems, family issues, personal issues. So we're working to do that.
Okay.
All right, Jason, you had your hand up.
Yes, did you get my email about the
Yep.
EMA budget?
Yep, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Mention that?
And I also had one other budget item for road commission. Road commission budget that would not be part of the ours because. You know, EMA doesn't need to cover that. But basically, communication seems to be a big problem, and during storms. We really have to document everything in D4H, get pictures uploaded to our Google Drive and get everything documented. You know, talking with Gay and everyone else about what we need to do for these storms, if we're ever gonna get any reimbursement. The documentation is key, and getting to D4H at the time gets us, gets the CMP to actually be able to see what's going on, so you can get power restored, so. Fire station depends on spectrum, which is about as good as the power. So the thought was is we would ask you to purchase a Starlink dish. And we would base it out at the fire station. If we had a hazmat or some long-term issue that requires connectivity, you know, say we had a hazmat issue at by the boatyard or someplace else, we might actually need to set up a communications trailer and, you know, the EMA per se there, and, you know, getting Spectrum out there to do that the day of is not likely to happen, but, you know, if we could take the dish off the top of the fire station, drive it out there, you know, we've got a communication area, EMA can show up with their trailer, you know, we have office space, we have all that, you know, for a hazard. And right now, you know, we at the fire station also use all the audio pages audio to phone with iron responding, go through a few different Raspberry Pis up there. So every time the Spectrum's out, we no longer get the pages. So it will work as a backup system. It will, when we're using the fire station as a warming shelter, it would also let people use it for the gas network. Give us backup. But you know, communication with EMA is pretty key. And that gives us some flexibility where we can just unplug and bring it to the location of whatever we need and get it instant communication set up with high-speed internet. So roughly there was almost $700 worth of capital costs in terms of the hardware. They gave you this in my list. The monthly recurring is anywhere between 90 and 120. Currently, it's 90. It's been as high as 120 a month for service. So, I think, or as high as 110. So if we can budget $100 a month for that, we can do that. And the thought was, if this gets approved, we can then start looking for some grant money to offset some of the hardware, but I can't guarantee we're going to get a grant for that. So I'd like to have something in place before October, so October storms, because we generally get walled in October. Once this gets approved, we can then start looking for some grants to possibly reduce that. So that's the Starlink. The EMA budget. And I think last year our budget was around $1,100. This would be slightly more, if not including that capital expenditure.
I apologize, I don't remember the specific one. We actually talked about the EMA budget a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and I was thinking, before the October storm, I was thinking that we would take the EMA tablet that Joe has and get AT&T FirstNet, which is $40 a month, but instead of spending 40, spend 90, you end up with a much more robust solution that really covers the fire department and it covers any hazard situation where we need to set up a communications office. So, it's just portable and takes care of, a lot more than just a SIM card and a tablet. Because Joe can then take the tablet, take the pictures, bring it to the fire station and upload pictures if things are, during an emergency.
Jason, have you, there's a committee, it was the broadband committee, and I know you're on that, but I think they had also expanded their.
Our next meeting, we're gonna, the agenda items still talk about expanding the scope.
Yeah, because I know this keeps coming up about emergencies and whatnot, and it feels like maybe looking at a bigger picture of how all that would go together.
As part of EMA, I'm trying to look at I go to Whitefield pretty much most Monday nights for communications team meetings and working on just the scenarios. We do, tabletop airplane crashes, all sorts of
Worst case scenarios, yep.
A lot of tabletops up there, and what we would do with equipment we would bring in, the different comm trailers. Whitefield has a few. They've got the rescue we can use as here as a mini comm unit with a external antenna and whatnot. So, this is more an EMA thing, less as a technology. And that will cover the Starlink. And in terms of the road picture budget, can we? I would ask that the town purchase a camera for the road commissioner to use to document any road issues. It doesn't have to be anything critically fancy. It can be a couple $100, phone, not phone, but camera. Because Jimmy's phone that ends up with 16K pictures. They're not 120. The res isn't workable for we're at May first storm. We were looking at roughly $17,000 worth of reimbursement. And a lot of it's going to depend on the pictures we have at the time. And I thought we had more pictures than we had because the pictures from Jimmy we have to kind of throw away. So I took pictures of a few of the roads, post on this.
Maybe on that point, you could expand on what the EMA has been working on with regard to reimbursement for those expenses.
Yeah, basically, there was actually did a pretty good document in terms of there's the time the fire department and the road commissioner spend needs to be documented. We take the run sheets for the fire department and the and road commissioners, so actual hours of work are there. We can use like the post office. We could do that issue that we have with post office. The fix it, but also to mitigate it, so we can potentially take that and use the money from this to expand the culvert from the current 12-inch or whatever culvert, maybe to 18-inch culvert, something that's a little more robust. You know, it's gonna take a little bit to get through, because it has to get approved. You know, there's in the county, it's $155,000 worth of damage, which far exceeded that on the May 1st storm. You know, some towns exceeded that, this didn't exceed the towns. So it's 155,000, then it needs to get, you know, Lincoln County has to sign it, it has to go to the governor goes to FEMA goes to the president. So there's gonna be a bunch of steps, right, before we get, you know, get money, then once we get approved, then they're gonna come back for us and look at all our documentation and see what of which we can justify and do. But, you know, like post office will be, you know, that one, I think is a pretty good case for a bigger culvert and it getting paid for as part of that. We have good pictures for that, so I think that's.
Just get a catch Jim up.
Yeah, because Jim, I wanted Jim's feedback on that.
Well, thank you for taking the time to put it in. I was glad, happy to get full bids.
Yeah, no, I figured you were probably doing your job. But Jason was talking about some things that were relevant to you from the EMA perspective. Again, this is collecting the damage information. So maybe you could.
So one of the things I was thinking was the town, we buy a camera for the road commissioner to use that actually takes.
Should we pick up pictures?
Your Patino camera was not. It's the res is,
Yeah.
I think I saw Bigfoot in one of them.
Yeah, right, yeah, I just, you know, since we had that meeting, that definitely clarified things. That was a good call.
If I can, interject. We as an EMA team had a meeting and we included Jimmy, we included the fire chief, Jason, myself, Gay and Jill were not available at the time, but we sat after the storm and we determined how to best handle storms going forward in the future, what we determined what we needed to do and how to fill out the forms correctly and ascertain what information we needed to collect going forward and how to handle storms in the midst of a storm at that time, so that we knew who needed to collect what pictures, like making sure Jimmy collected pictures if he was at a particular location, Jason if he was at a particular location, the fire chief, so that we knew what we actually needed to get to make sure that we are documenting correctly, because there's no guarantee that we will get reimbursement, but we want to make sure that we have enough documentation so that if the county collectively has enough that we can put it forward to the governor and the governor then declare, or to the county, and then the governor then declares it an emergency, enough to make it an emergency, and then it goes up to FEMA and they declare it an emergency, and then the president will declare it an emergency. We can actually hopefully get reimbursement, but if we can actually see the documentation, make sure that we have all the hours and make sure we have everything that we need, then even what we have to mitigate it in the future, all that goes in. And Gray was nice enough, even though she wasn't able to attend, to afterwards send us the document that says, and helped us think of other items that we need to actually think about going forward to make sure that we're collecting. So that going forward, if there's another storm or future storm, that we actually make sure that not an item is missed, because the more dollars we put in, the more that we can document helps us in the future.
Yeah, I'm all for that, and I agree. I want to make sure that, that you don't put all your eggs into his basket. Because I think, like the last storm, I know he was going to Edgecombe as well as coming here and running back and forth and having to worry about taking pictures at the same time. And did you forget your camera? So I just maybe having a backup as well, so that they're.
It can be, but if someone goes to fix something and we don't get a picture of it.
Right, I get that.
Where in
Right.
trouble because then we
Yep.
can't document it.
Right.
The other thing is if Jimmy comes across something or Jason comes across something and we don't put a picture of it into the DH4 system,
then it's gone.
well, not only that, but the other thing is we want to be prioritized. If BMP doesn't see a picture of the wires on the tree
On fire.
on fire, they may not prioritize us and go to another town, but if we have enough trees on wires on trees, and they, oh, Westport has 6 pictures in there, wait a second here, something's going on in Westport, we may get higher priority versus
Mhm.
another.
No, I hear all that. I think I would be pretty ticked off if instead of putting out the fire that's right next to my house, Jim says, wait a minute, gotta take some good pictures here.
Well,
So that's why it's helpful. Yep,
but
yep.
if there's a washout in a road, it takes 1
Mhm.
second to take a picture.
Yep, if
before-
he's got his camera. Yep, yep. And I want to make sure that all the pressure isn't on him. That's all.
Well, it's not.
We
Yeah.
had a conversation that we would work on the communication, so,
Mhm.
if
Perfect,
if he knows
perfect.
about post office
Yep.
road, cause I didn't know about it during the storm. He can tell me, I can. scoot over
Exactly.
there, which is
Perfect.
What I did, I
Yep.
scooted up the post office, I took a bunch of pictures.
Mhm.
But I didn't realize until I got the list from Jimmy about the other items, and by then it was pretty much too late.
Yep,
'Cause there was already work done on them, so.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you all
yeah, we-
don't put all the pressure on him and
We're working on it.
It's communication thing.
exactly.
You know, in winter time. They have to rely on them a little more as.
Mhm.
Big thing is getting everything documented.
Mhm.
Cause I was guilty too, I wanted to cut, there was a tree blocking Main Road, I wanted to cut up the tree.
Yeah.
I didn't, it was it was what, 2 AM, 3 AM, I forget what it was.
Mhm.
4 AM, I think 4:47.
Okay, it was oh dark, 400, and,
Yeah.
I cut up the tree, I didn't take a picture of it, cause it was pitch black and.
But that's what we're all doing. We're all out there cutting down trees, moving stuff.
Yep.
And I, mea culpa, I got the post office road washout, and reported it, but didn't take a picture.
Yeah, and then Maureen kind of scolded me about not taking a picture of the Main Road tree, so.
Yeah.
Next time I will stop and take a picture, then cut up the tree.
Still, you know, they're doing that position, I'm doing mine. There's a little bit of a learning curve, especially
Yeah.
with bureaucracy stuff, but it all boils down to dollars and cents, and you
Yeah.
have to do it.
Yeah.
But it'll work itself out, and I'm sure stuff will be taken care of.
Yeah, I think once we get in the habit of it, but I just don't want everything falling on Jim to say, yeah,
That's like Jason, you know, when I see a tree across the road, my first instinct is, we gotta get this tree out of the road, and I gotta take a picture of it, and get reimbursed.
It's not about putting the responsibility on Jimmy, it is about making sure there's communication.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
what. that's what
yeah,
we-
and if he
that's what we-
can let you guys know or whatever, but it just having that,
We've got a group text set up now.
Yeah,
Good.
it's having that team, and that's,
Yep,
I think
yep.
this string help us gel that, so this is good.
Yeah, and especially if we're looking at, that wasn't that bad, and that was $17,000 with potential reimbursement. If we, get better at this and document more, we can maybe work out some of our road issues,
Well, it showed, that bid package, well, that went in the garbage can because that storm, me a lot of sweet spot. And things that need to be addressed. So there's a good side to a bad storm, and that's the good side is we see where the weak spots are.
Mhm.
I can get down there and clean that culvert out at Brown Studleys every day. And when we get a storm like that, it's still gonna flood and wash out the road because it's not big enough.
Yeah.
So,
And apparently the feds like mitigation, so they don't want to just keep on repairing that same thing every time, they want to.
Yeah.
They want to pay to put in a new big culvert in and never see it ever again.
Well, this is what things we're trying to do is we do road expenditures on a particular problem to document it. So we have some history. And this is one where we do have. 2 years ago, we also had a washout, that same culvert. So it's now, hopefully we gotta fix it.
I think we're gonna add another 15, I think is the thing to do. Dig that one out, flip it around the right way and put another 15 in, about 6 or 7 feet from it.
Okay. Yeah, whatever you say.
You know, like you say, mitigate it so it doesn't happen again, so we don't have to keep spending money in the same spot over and over and over. I'd rather fix something, fix it right, and walk away from it and go on to the next problem.
Smaller problem, hopefully.
Well, I don't have to work too hard for everything.
Not after 5 inches of rain.
No. 6.3, this fella next to me's got a weather center, and he had 6.3 in 12 hours.
Wow. So,
Jason, do you have a cost on the camera that you're interested in, or you just wanted to propose it?
I'm proposing it, I think you guys
Okay.
can pick it, you know, go to Amazon, pick any camera that, you know.
Just-
Ideally, something that, you know, Jimmy can walk and do, the office with, and maybe hand it, to Dee Dee or someone to, you know, grab the pictures off of. You know, I'm not around.
I can push a button, but that's about.
Well, I think there's kind of hand the camera to someone and.
Right.
So, Jim, we'll talk about that later then.
Yeah, but,
Okay. All right, any other, there's one more that, was a flag issue?
Well, just, if I could, Jason, on what you're proposing for budget, I think we'd like to pull it in, maybe talk about it again. As we get further into the budget, because we talked about, you're modifying, I guess, what we talked about for the EMA.
Yeah,
So-
I thought of, with the storm had me thinking about it a
Yeah.
lot more. And-
So good to do it now before we get too much further down the road, so, but not quite ready to.
Well, I just, the 24th is coming up soon.
Yeah, no, it's good to get it now, just not ready to say something about it tonight.
Well, I think that it's gotta get voted on eventually.
Yeah, but we gotta put it in the.
In the warrant items. Okay. All right, did you want to talk about the flag?
Well, just, one of the other recurring items, I think we need to give some more focus to our visibility. We need to have a volunteer or volunteers to handle the flags. So last week, I think the fire station was at half staff, but it was the only one that was at half staff until I got back from vacation. And I've got the advantage of being tall enough to
Yeah.
be able to handle
I
the other.
could not reach the top.
Yeah, this is the problem, so we gotta address that as well, but we need to have a volunteer to take care of the flags, to put them in the half staff. So today, for example, there's another one where this morning, they need to go on half staff, and it's supposed to go back up again this evening after sunset. So, did you get that one?
I looked it up and I wasn't sure if it was 100% or not. Well, regardless, I didn't get it or not.
Yeah.
I would have done the fire station.
Well, it was done.
Thank you.
But be my guest about putting it back up.
But I didn't see it. I came that day to do the one here and there was no flag on this one.
Still gotta finish, I gotta finish splicing the blackboard on. But, so this is kind of a pitch, we need that if there's a citizen or someone who knows someone who might be interested to support this, really our you know, kind of patriotic duty of maintaining our flag responsibly in terms of how it's displayed. We need that help.
We talked about putting it in the next newsletter.
It's gonna go out tomorrow.
There would be 4 flags
Yep.
and the person has to be tall.
Or we have to invest in a little
Step
step ladder, maybe a crate or something, I don't know, yeah. Don't turn OSHA on me.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, the one at the head of the island is hard even for someone tall.
I have to stand on that little brick there to do it, this is
I
true.
didn't notice an issue with that one when I did it.
We'll put you in charge then, Jason.
Is that volunteer?
Yeah, I think that sounded like a volunteer.
I'm not sure I can volunteer for much more right now.
So there will be something that comes out in the next newsletter asking for, you know, if anybody's interested in doing this task. So we'll see if we get any takers. Because it has been an issue. All right, and no other citizens issues. Okay, let's go to roads. Jim's, well, let's actually start with the status of speeding.
So we said that we wanted to, and speeding's been an issue, it's been an issue for years, and keep coming back to it. The one substantial thing we did was actually thanks to Bailey, putting up some additional signs to help. But we still have the speeding problem, and residents are complaining. Again, the concerns about people who are just afraid to walk out to their mailbox. So we've asked the sheriff's department again to increase monitoring, increase patrolling. That's one thing. I don't know how much more they'll be able to do, but we have asked, and we should be getting that speed monitor signed back sometime this month. Again, we can get that for a couple of weeks. That's just a reminder. The other thing that we decided to do was we wanted to ask the Department of Transportation for some advice of the things that we could do, whether it be signage or something with the roads to try to calm speed. If we had a village, we could put out speed bumps, which would slow people down. They would not be happy, and it would slow people down. But what can we do short of speed bumps that might help people be mindful about speed? So the point is, we will ask. So we've sent a request to the Department of Transportation to try to set up a workshop where people can come in and talk about their concerns, and the Department of Transportation could give us some suggestions of what we might be able to do. But short of, again, we know it's a problem. Sometimes it is us doing it if we lose track and you're speeding down the road because you're in a hurry. But we've got to do a better job. We can't just rely on the deer to slow down the traffic.
You do a good job, though.
There, in some cases they are, but
They'll sacrifice themselves to help.
Yeah, right.
Turkeys are very helpful too lately.
Yes, yes.
One thing I can say is you can have a road that is in horrible shape. And it doesn't seem to slow them down. The only thing it does when you fix the road is the speed bump. But the speed is already excessive, like East Shore Road,
Mhm.
as bad as shape as that road is in right now, and as rough as it is. People go down there 45 miles an hour.
They know where all the potholes are.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And it just- when we pave it, there's gonna be more complaints.
Yep.
Because no, you can answer to that one.
Route 27 to Booth Bay is littered with potholes.
And look at the shape of that, and people still is horrifying.
yeah. It's again, it's a common problem. So towns that have a state route, we at least have the advantage of asking the state for some advice. Not quite sure what they're gonna be able to do for us, but I hear that from other towns too. Same problem. Like a Route 27, 218 going through Alma and Whitefield.
Is there a way that we could install a machine which would monitor the speed of the vehicles, and then we could show how many vehicles are going through excessive speed and what the speeds were? Not to shame the people, but
We could also invest in a speed camera that actually takes a picture of the vehicle, captures the license plate, and records the speed they were going when the picture was taken.
And then it sends it off to, so they can get their ticket in the mail. They do that overseas.
they do that.
It works well overseas.
They do that in Switzerland.
Yep, they do it in a lot of
Family members have
countries.
been recipients of this.
Yeah,
So that's why we wanted actually the DOT involved to help us and have them help own the problem. At least for the portion of the town roads, which is the state road.
all right, so we keep hearing about it, we keep trying to address it, so,
Hopefully it's not, something isn't done, and it's a horrible accident.
you know,
If somebody's going out of their life, and they get killed by some
Yeah.
drunk driver.
yeah,
There's not inattention is another big factor. A friend of mine just got hit out on Route 1, making a left turn, and a woman rear-ended him. on a wide open stretch, like the church here in Warwick on Route 1. No rhyme or reason, just, man, didn't even see it coming. Driver inattention.
All right, so let's go to recent work that's been done, Jim, on the roads.
Fixing storm damage, we're Main Road. Bring the list, I didn't hold it. Lower Main Road, Post Office Road, North End Road, Bay Shore Road, and Doggy Road where it washed out from the, critters there from the culvert.
The beavers or whatever. I have to say that, I was talking to somebody from Bay Shore the other day. And the individual was so excited. He said, there's been work done, and he was thrilled.
Yeah,
So,
that's
thank you.
just really fixing the problem. It's not causing the problem. The cause of the problem can be fixed later on.
Right, but he was still excited, and I want to make sure you heard that.
Yeah, no, I
He
think
felt
the
good.
state guy called me and thanked me and
Nice,
asked me
nice.
back and do some more.
Great. All right, Baker Road.
Um,
I didn't
It-
update on that.
Pardon?
I didn't think we had an update on that.
Well, we don't have a legal update, but I put it on the agenda for us to talk about, because the encroachment on the roadway is, I think, is about as aggressive as it's been, if not more so than when the temporary restraining order went out. So I think I'd like to propose that we, the board, again, inquire with our attorney about what course of action we could take. We are scheduled to go and have a mediation session with the other party and their attorney, middle of June. That's, again, that's a month away. In the meantime, we're not quite sure where the other party's going with their encroachments on the road. And it seems like we should be doing something a little bit more aggressive about it ourselves.
It seems like there's something further south now on the side of the road as well. I know where the fence was, there was that big pole, but now there's something even further south.
That's what I try to look in that direction.
Pictures being taken there.
Yeah,
Many.
we've been taking pictures kind of regularly, and so I took some again today. But I would just confer and say, would you agree to raise it? Send it off again to our attorney. Again, the other option I'd like to explore, that's okay, is to talk to the district attorney's office. Again, to see whether we can make the case now, even without the adjudication of the boundaries, which is what the court case is about, whether we can say clearly, this is in the road. This is criminal. It's creating obstruction. So I'd like to pursue the criminal as well as the civil route.
He's also started working on another area, the green trailer. And now he's put, I don't know where the boulders always come from, but he's now got boulders across the driveway on the green trailer. So I thought maybe he'd be too busy doing that, but he would.
Yeah, no.
It was north. I thought I saw him in his tractor kind of north of his house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. There's a green trailer there. Yeah. And then there's something behind it that's looked like he was gonna start to build something. So, yeah, we're sort of monitoring that. Yeah.
We stopped out here a couple weeks ago and wanted me to stop and see him. Cause somebody stole a bunch of his rocks. I think he's talking about the one he put up in the front of the place. I don't know.
I put one in the back of my truck, my car.
There's no solution to that. It's.
You just tell him that you get tag them.
Yes, there is a solution to it.
Yeah, I don't, who would steal his rocks? I mean, you have to really work hard. I mean, those are boulders. They're not.
Well, no, last time I went down there, it cost me $360 and a ride in the sheriff car, so I'm good.
Okay, so thanks for the update. We'll talk about, going to the attorney. All right, as we have been doing the past few weeks, we've been doing sort of a budget review, just sort of giving a landscape of what's, going on. I think this is, pretty much the last of our odds and ends today on, a budget review. And so I'm gonna let, Jeff play with that.
Okay. So what I'm gonna do is we're covering tonight the budget request for town committees. And general assistance, matching funds for grants and social service agencies. So that's what I've queued up to talk to. Yes?
I just have a quick question. Because you weren't doing carryovers, you were talking about that in previous budget discussions. With committees in the past, they've had funds and they've been carried forward, and the budget requests were just enough dollars to bring back up. I didn't know, for instance, with the cemetery committee, if we should be asking for less money to bring up to our normal standing amount.
So it's a good question. So the general thing we want to get to is we don't rely on a carry forward as an adder per se. What we really want to know is, what do you need? What does the committee or the function believe they need to have next year? And bringing money that wasn't used this year to help pay for that is one way to do it. But don't worry about that. We can work that out.
And actually cemeteries is on here, so we'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah, because it's the different committees. So I'm gonna read out the committee name, and with the information I've got captured is the requested amount for this year, the budget from last year, and what as of last week had been spent so far this year. And I've got an explanation of what the money spent for. So I'll start off with the Board of Appeals. Last year's budget was $400. They've spent so far this year $255. And then what they're spending it for is for legal advertising and training of members. So just fairly minor. And so recommending, and this did not come from the Board of Appeals, but just saying that they should plan to have another $400 for next year. Again, reminder, if we don't spend the money this year, we don't lose it, it just goes into our surplus. And it is available to be used for next year. The Planning Board had a budget of $800 for the year. They've spent so far to date $241, again, for legal advertising and training, and recommending that they continue with an $800 budget. That should be enough to cover them. Cemeteries had a budget of $400. They spent to date $174 plus $321 for veterans graves. And that thing is coming from a different pot of money. So it's from a capital reserve account set aside for veterans graves. But what was spent this year was $174. And so since the chair of the cemetery committee is here,
Both of us are here.
okay, co-chairs, okay.
We're co-chairs.
Then what would you propose for, that you think you need to ask for next year?
We've always asked for 400. We have a new team this year, so we'd like to stick with 400 so that we can go and assess the cemetery, so that we will stick with what we've always asked for, and then we'll assess it this year, what we've spent this year, because it will be a new team of people working and figuring out what we actually need to do, but we'll go with what they've always done.
So again, we'll put in 400. Could you, since I got you, the 174, I assume the 321 was for flags and things relating to the flags for
Those were
veterans.
flags, and those come out of the flags.
Yeah. Well, the 174, I didn't know what that was actually
Usually
used
it's for repairing fences, and I believe they made wrought iron not right, what are they called,
The latches or the hinges?
no, they made crosses, I don't know what, rebar to, when they found graves.
Goes on forever.
So they mark the grave with rebar until they can do something else, or they
Well,
just
there
keep
were no-
it?
There were no headstones, they made something
Rebar,
out of
yep.
rebar. So they had those made, but I know there, after storms, we want to be able to do some more with cleaning up, getting rid of bittersweet, getting rid of, we'll do more maintenance this year.
There's also a couple cemeteries that are inundated with bittersweet, you can barely access them. And there's a cemetery up, just before Sebert Stretch in the woods. It has 3 actual headstones, but potentially more people interred there. And there's a large tree that is on an angle and coming down that will take out the headstone of one of the fowls if it comes down all the way. So any of that work would be included under that
Mhm.
tiny $100 request.
There's a
$400, yeah.
big cemetery up on McCarty Cove. It's the McCarty Cemetery. And there's a couple of trees in the cemetery. It's a gated, you know, had a little courtyard thing, get out of the water, and it's very nice. There's a tree, so a couple of trees about this size within the bounds. And the problem is if those trees come down, it's gonna destroy the fence plus the, probably a few headstones. I mean, you'd have to have a, you know, a professional arborist to get in there to take it down in a way. It's far from the road. So probably getting a bucket trucker, I mean, would be impossible also, so you need.
The McCarty Cove Cemetery wouldn't be able to get, you'd have to have somebody climb or,
Yeah, that's what this is.
yeah. And that has a gorgeous fence,
So,
Doesn't sound like that budget's enough to cover the tree removal.
Well, let's plan the 400 is, you know, I think, I like the, you know, get going and see.
let's get going,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's a new committee,
Mhm.
in terms of who's handling the work this year. So we'll stick with the 400, and if we need more, we'll figure it out, or we'll budget for next year. We're doing the race, we're doing the flags this Friday, with the rain date next Monday. And when we assess, at that point, we'll also be assessing, and some of the cemeteries. And if we need to order any, grave markers for veterans, those are part of the flags, because the flags go in those, and those will come out of the flag budget, not out of that budget. And we're pretty well set with the flags budget, and I ordered more flags than we needed in case we came across any newly interred, or we discover that somebody is a veteran, or over the summer, if something happens to a flag, because I know last 1 year, some flags got destroyed, so that we have flags that we can go back and replace.
Okay.
George?
I believe your flags come out of a fund that Mary Stacy donated to the town when she passed away, and I think it was $5,000. So that will be forever. And the other thing is, you're not gonna have any carry forward, so you're gonna be raising the amount of money that each committee will want. And
Actually, George, no. We're going to be using a combination of the same idea of carrying money forward that wasn't spent. But the technical term will be coming out of surplus, so we'll be carrying forward out of surplus.
I understand, but people aren't gonna know.
We'll have to
what that
explain it.
was.
Yeah, I'll have to explain it, George. You can help explain it, okay? If you understand how it works, you can help explain it.
You're the one that did it, you explain it.
Well, it's the way in which it's recommended by the MMA. It's a lot easier to do it, cleaner, if we use
It
that
makes it
approach.
easy for your accountants.
Mhm. Yep. We have fewer screw ups.
Conservation.
Conservation has asked in the past for $1,200. They've spent nothing though. In my sense, it's for the operating expenses. The warrant articles, it's for operating expenses for the Conservation Commission, if you needed to do something that you had the funds available. So it's more of a just in case.
Well, we've, since that last year, we now are administering this community resilience partnership. And there's quite a bit of, work that's involved in that. But pretty soon, we're gonna be, collecting water samples and taking them to a lab. Somebody's gonna have to do this. And we're gonna meet on Thursday night with the geohydrologist and develop some division of responsibility, but I think there's gonna be a lot of volunteer work for our committee people, which may involve more out-of-pocket expenses than we've had in the past. Most of the time, like on the island cleanup, the people donate the coffee, the donuts, the paper bags, things like that. So we haven't really put in for it, maybe we should. I would think that $1,200 should be left there, because if you start driving, when we charge for more we have to take, could be, more expensive. Yeah.
So again, I think it's something as a hallmark of Westport, is we do a lot of volunteering, and a lot of stuff comes out of people's pocket just
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah.
they wanna.
I have no problem with
Yeah.
that, but we're gonna be asking other people to do this now, so.
So we're recommending continuing the $1,200.
Yeah.
Yeah, just noting that, you got it if you need it. The History Committee, has been budgeted for a number of years for $500 a year. And once again, to get $500 this year, they spent this past year $594, more than that. And again, I can speak to that as the treasurer of the History Committee. We're using the money from the History Committee that's appropriated by the town to help preserve the town's collection of documents and artifacts now at the Wright Landing House. And so we want to continue to get that appropriation from the town to cover that expense. The Friends of Westport Island History are paying for an awful lot more. So there's more money coming in now to support history. But the $500 that we're asking for is going to be for helping for the security cost to protect the collection. And one of the things that we want to do, but haven't yet discussed with the full board, is to take some of the money that we've set aside to carry forward from prior years and actually buy the new Simply Safe security equipment for the Wright Landing House. It can then replace the Cunningham equipment and won't cost us anything. So we'll be able to save some money for the town by doing that, but use the money that we've been putting away for a rainy day. Well, this is kind of the rainy day. We'd like to do that, but I'll be proposing that at another select board meeting. Bottom line is that we're asking for another $500, and probably would continue doing that because it'll be roughly the cost of providing the security. The Town Hall Committee has in the past, last year's budget was $4,100. So far to date, they've spent $4,528. That's covering expenses like the mowing and exterior work, property repairs, supplies, but the biggest costs have actually been in heat and electricity. So that's what's driven it up. I think their costs were higher than I expected, Bailey, for the heat when they actually came in when they refilled the tank. So that's why we actually are over the budget on that account. So you have a proposal for what we should be spending for this coming year?
The committee is asking for 8,100. There's some massive repairs that we want to put in. We need to do a new entryway ramp for the building. And a door repair for the front door. Those doors are also not your typical door that you could find at Lowe's. So it's going to be more of a creative approach to that. And then finally, the other newer expense is a vapor barrier. So we're continuously spending money on Band-Aids, replacing clapboards a couple at a time, painting certain spots a couple at a times, and fixing doors, irregular doors. But what the main issue is that's causing all the problems is the moisture from the basement. So the vapor barrier would hopefully solve that issue, and we would only have to put on those Band-Aids, so to speak, once or twice, as opposed to annually.
So 8,100.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. And I've added a line, these are the committees that have historically gotten funds from the town. And go through the town meeting warrant. I wanted to put in an extra, I say one, and probably should say we put in an extra $1,000 just for all the other committees. So that if we have a committee that needs something, there's actually a funding or budget available for them to do that. So relatively small amount, but just something there so that we don't have to scramble and take money out of contingency if a committee should need the funds. The last item in this area is the E911 addressing. It's been $500. Our thinking is that we'll move that to the stipend for the E911 addressing officer. So there's actually another amount that shows up under stipends. I think we should just combine the two and not have this here under a town committee. It's kind of in two places. So that's a total of $12,900 proposed. With the addition of the additional money for the town hall. Most things are pretty much the same. Town hall's gone up. This all other committees adds an extra cost.
And the EMA, you'll address that.
Pardon?
In the EMA, but you'll address that.
Yeah, because this is the committees. So we actually kind of covered that section with public safety. So I didn't want to bring it in now.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, that's okay. I had gotten your input in advance. So, and it's fine to have new thoughts. Again, this is the right time to do it before we finalize it for town meeting. Another major item then that in the town warrant is setting aside some funds for matching grants. So if we were able to, propose a grant, often there's a need to have some matching funds. So what in the past we've had $10,000 identified in the town warrant is available for matching grants. If we don't have a grant, it just goes into surplus. So it's not lost. But John, I think we're expecting that we'll have more grant opportunities and more maybe costly grants. That it would be good to increase the amount of matching funds. So we thought at a minimum, we should go from 10,000 to 20,000 in anticipation that we're going to have some opportunities with our infrastructure needs. And we'll want to have that matching grant. And I'm looking at a couple people who have some interest and awareness of this. Is that enough? Or is that too much? What do you think?
Well, typically in years past, we've always had the 10,000 set aside for unanticipated grant opportunities that come up. And it's been used for things at Wright Landing, it's been used at Cloud Point and other places in the past. So that's kind of the standard that we've had going forward. And whatever's left over, if there's any left over, we call it funds for Westport Island's future. And this year, the window just opened last week for the next round of community resilience grants. The grant applications are due on the 7th of July. And based on the community workshop we held last year, the next highest priority next to the groundwater and the wells was the infrastructure that's subject to inundation during major storm events, surges, or sea level rise. And that's the dike crossing at Swan Creek, the Heel Pond crossing, and our favorite Post Office Road, Swim Creek Crossing, which we talked about earlier. Those are the three elements that we have planned to put into a bid that we'll be submitting for grant funding for $50,000. But that's grant funding that just does the preliminary design and evaluation in anticipation of what the state is saying we should plan for a 4-foot sea level rise. So it'd be a 4-foot rise at a minimum on the road level and a more capable conduit for water to flow in and out as the tides change, as the tides rise. And once that is underway, we'll then have the ability to get estimates for the next step, which will be implementing the changes that are recommended as a result of the study. And those are likely to be costly. I mean, we're talking many hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not several million, depending on what 4-foot sea level rise really does. So in our planning, we're planning to get grant funding from MDOT, NOAA, other sources that would help with the implementation of those recommendations once we have them. But for any grant that the town goes for, there's almost always a 10% to 20% match required. So in order to create a fund, to build up a fund that we could utilize for those 10 to 20% matches to get the hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars needed to implement the corrections, the remediations, we wanted to begin the process, and we had recommended $20,000. That would be in addition to the 10 that we typically ask for, but that amount is up to the board's, up to the board. You guys decide what you want to do, but it would be the first increment in what would be expected to be several years of growing reserve funds to allow us to pursue larger grants to make permanent repairs to these tidal crossings.
Yes, the initial study that we're going for the grant this year, there's no match. Like the water study.
Right.
We'll get $50,000 without having to put up on them. Oh,
The Community Resilience Partnership.
right.
Yeah. Umbrella.
This was the language that we submitted. It's Article Z is what we had suggested, but again, the amount should be determined by the select board.
But you did recommend 20,000. Yeah, okay, then I guess we're consistent.
20,000 and additional to the 10.
Right.
So
So it'd be 30 then.
So it'd be
Yeah.
30.
Okay, it's two different, you've got two different
We have
ones.
two different warrants.
Okay.
The Article Y is what we've had in the previous years, right? Article Z would be new to create a reserve for these tidal crossing repairs.
Okay,
And the WCA is also looking to potentially do matches if we can't get volunteers, donations on our own, if we're allowed to pursue the playground, play area for kids. So,
Yes.
but I wouldn't anticipate
That
that
would be
being more
probably
than,
out of the 10,000.
Yeah. yeah,
The 10,000 is kind of generic.
right, yeah. But I just want to call that out, yeah, and I know you're well aware that actually, Dennis came with us when we did a little tour.
okay. Well, again, we'll take these and plug this in, also your proposed warrant articles. In fact, them in, so good, thank you. Then the next item is general assistance. We've historically had a budget of $2,000. We've historically not spent the $2,000. However, this year there's been a serious concern. Maybe I should let our GA administrator talk about the concerns.
Yeah, by law, if there is an issue where we have to provide GA, we have to do whatever is required. So if a town limits it to 2,000 and it costs more than that, we have to pay more than that. That's by law. The state would reimburse us 70%. But I'd like to see it up a little bit, only because people have this wrong perception that, you know, we'll spend $2,000 and that's it. It became an issue this year, and it was very, very close to us having to pay a substantial amount. So, and I think times are getting worse and they're getting better, but GA is for emergencies, and there actually were 2 cases where we came pretty close. So one was very, very close, like till the day before. So I would just like to up it. I don't anticipate and hope we would never spend it. But because the perception is that, you know, if, for example, a town could say, we're not going to spend any money. Well, if you have a GA issue, you got to spend the money, whether you have it in your budget or not. This way, if it's in the budget that there's more money, fewer people are going to question or say, no, you can't spend more than $2,000, because in reality, if somebody needed a hotel room, if there were such a thing as a hotel room available, or needed some kind of housing, we would have to support them. And there are lots of stipulations. But just because it's been very, very close, and because there has been some pushback, I just feel like saying it's maybe $5,000. Hopefully we'll never have to spend it, but at least it would be there and nobody would question or say we can't spend this money, when actually by law we have to, if it becomes an issue, if somebody is in that kind of emergency. You know, for a lot of things we have helping hands who can do things like fuel and food. But if somebody needs housing, that falls on us. That's part of GA. If somebody is in a position that they're going to be homeless, and that's our responsibility. And there's a lot of stipulations that go with that. But George, you had a thought.
I believe that if you're gonna go over, you can take that money out of contingency,
Well, we have to take it out of something. Yeah.
but you can do it.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
So
Yeah.
you really don't need to increase it.
I know the only reason I'm recommending an increase is because people have this perception that we can only spend $2,000 and we don't have to go over. And I just have had some conversations with people
They can
who,
have that if they want to.
yep,
Let them
Yeah.
have it.
George, though, contingency has to be used in general for across all the budget categories, not just GA. So it's the amount that we put aside, again, to handle overruns. One of the comments from the auditors this last year was that we hadn't been using contingency and we had overrun a number of accounts. So I don't think we're gonna have that problem this coming year. Because we're working on improving some of the accounting methods. But we don't just want to rely on contingency to cover a problem. We'd like to plan to have enough in the budget, knowing if we don't spend it, it goes back into surplus. But by having it there in the budget, we're not constrained by running out of contingency. Even though
I would like to speak.
Go ahead, Richard.
If we have $2,000 in there, people get the perception that that's what we have available. You put $5,000 in it and they'll say, whoa, there's $5,000 there. We'll go after the whole thing. We know we have to pay it anyway. So it's a perception of what's there that is important to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
thanks, Richard. And by the way, the perception is not by people who need the money. It's by other townspeople who feel like we don't need to spend this money on GA issues. And I just feel like if we just upped it a little bit, then it's like nobody's gonna be arguing and saying, you know, you can't do this. And I have had a couple hard arguments with individuals, and I just feel like it would be, you know, and if the town will vote on it, and the town can say, no, you know, we want to keep it at 2,000. I'd like to propose 5,000, and we'll see what the town has to say.
So I did it for 25 years.
Mhm.
And I always got the people the help they needed, and it didn't always have to come out of taxpayers' money.
Right, and it didn't this year so far, knock on wood. But times are hard, and I agree, I'm working closely with Helping Hands whenever we can. You know, we give them the services that they need, but if somebody is homeless, it's not something that Helping Hands does. That's something that's the town's responsibility. And you were lucky for 25 years, nobody ever became homeless.
Well, I did my homework and research also.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Okay,
And I never let anybody fall through the cracks.
and so far we haven't done that. We haven't let anybody fall through the cracks either. But it is almost impossible to find housing right now. In fact, it is impossible to find housing. A waiting lists are generally a couple of years. And can't even find a hotel room for somebody. That's, it's a national issue. It's definitely a state issue. If you're keeping up with Portland, you're hearing about the tent cities. That's what we have right now. And so when somebody's going to be homeless, there aren't many options.
so proposal is for $5,000.
Yeah, and we'll see what the town says. And to me, it's fine either way. The money has to be spent if it's an issue. But I just feel like maybe there'd be less questions if it were 5,000 rather than 2,000. Want to go to the last
The
one?
last section are the social service agencies, and so these are the nonprofits providing services to Westport Island residents. We've got 6 of them that we've historically supported. Healthy Kids, local in Lincoln County, we've budgeted in the past $1,500, and they've asked for another $1,500 this year. So that's again providing services to some of our kids. Life Flight Foundation, Life Flight of Maine, it's been $150 and continuing at $150. Maine Public Broadcasting has been $100, continuing at $100. New Hope Midcoast, and that's used to be known as New Hope for Women. That's shelter and services. Last year was $745. This year they've asked for $894. So they have asked for an increase. And Spectrum Generations has in the last year was $701. They've asked for $771. Midcoast Community Action, in the past, we've given them last year $450. This year they haven't actually made a request. And I'm not sure whether that's because we've either misplaced it, but at least at this point, there's no money there for Midcoast Community Action. So the total requested for 2024 is $3,415 for 5 agencies. Last year, we had $3,646 for 6 agencies. So not a big amount. It is providing funds to the nonprofits that are providing some services to our town. And with that, I've covered the kind of the miscellaneous odds and ends sections. We've already talked about the administrative costs, the public safety costs, the road budget costs in prior weeks. Our next steps are going to be to take the different budgets and turn it into the big budget that we'll then use as a foundation for the town warrant. And so we should be reviewing that next week.
All right, any committee reports? Anybody want to share anything with the committee? No, other than what you've already done. All right. I don't know anything about any correspondence, so we'll go on to admin items. One thing I'd like to mention is that Spirit of America Award comes up every year. We have met as an entire staff and made a decision. And what I'd like to do is make a motion that we adopt that recommendation, that the select board and staff recommend.
I'll second that, and just to note that we'd actually like not to have it be known. Just
Not
yet.
until it's announced.
Yeah.
So, but we did make that, we did all agree as a whole staff. That includes everybody. All right. April, you want to talk about the dog at trust?
Was that a motion and a vote though?
Oh, yes. I did make a motion that we accept the recommendation. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
all right.
All right.
Yeah, on the Doggett Trust, as I was putting together the annual report, I reached out to Bill Cooney about that. Whether there were any additional numbers I was missing, and he was like, what, the committee still exists? This shouldn't exist, we don't have any money, it's gone. I'm the only person left as far as I know, and we aren't meeting, so I think we should probably officially let that committee go since they're done their work. And I'm not sure if there's an official process for that, but put it on the agenda so we could at least start to address it.
Well, I'll make a recommendation that we dissolve that committee
Second that motion.
and we approve.
Remind us what that committee did.
Well, I don't really know. They got the money in the trust and they spent it.
The only thing I know is that the other two members were Calvin and Ruth. And that is all I know about it. George, do you know about who that committee was?
Well, what?
Doggett Trust?
Yep, the money's still there and it's to be approved by the board.
I think the last time we spent any money on it, I think we got some money out of the Doggett Trust to pay for window expenses for the Right Landing House. So I think that's what used it up. So it was a very, again, a very nice bequest.
But they turned it over to the board.
Yeah. So we've dissolved the committee, but it for a number of years, it did very nice service to provide some funds for community projects.
All right, I'd like to set the next month's meeting agenda schedule. And I would propose that we keep our Monday working Monday 6 to 7 workshop. And except for, well, I think the end of the month is the only holiday at the end of this month. So I would say every week in June is what I would propose, every Monday in June. And I'd also like to propose that we keep our Wednesday afternoon work group when George sometimes joins us. And that's 3 or 5.
I can second that motion if we're saying.
Okay, and-
Every, basically continuing it with the Monday
Exactly,
series.
exactly.
And again, we'd already said we weren't gonna be meeting on Memorial Day.
Memorial Day, yep. Absentee ballot machine.
Oh, yeah. Just wanted to announce absentee voting is going to start tomorrow. Go easy on me, I'm new, but it does start tomorrow. It runs through June 8th. So folks can come in and vote in person right here at the town office while we're open. They can fill out an absentee ballot application if they want to take a ballot with them, or if they want me to mail them the ballot. I'm gonna put up an official notice tomorrow out on Facebook and in the kiosks and everything, but just to get that on the official radar here.
Great. All right, and I just want to say that we are going to submit some paperwork, certificate of compliance with CMP. That doesn't require that we do anything, but this is still for, especially Gay has been really focused on the signage up at the top of at the head of the island. And I know we have a committee that's now sort of looking at, do we want that or do we want something else? We've also had further conversation about maybe looking at 2 distinct purposes. So one purpose Like when, I think you were talking about before about like the code red and whatnot, that would be for an emergency. But for this, for the signage, maybe that is just for not emergencies, but really for town business, so that, instead of having to crawl up there and put a sign up there, or whatever it is, island, cleanup, which isn't an emergency, but it is signage, and, people had to go crawl up there and take care of it. So when we have a conversation about that, because I know we talked about expanding the committee, is to keep the two separate. Yep, great. She's the one that recommended that we fill out the application. It doesn't mean we have to do anything. It's just one further step that we have to jump through, as you were talking about with FEMA. So we will do that, and that at least sort of protects us, so that if we want to move forward, we don't have to start from scratch. And all it does is it certify that we've done whatever we're supposed to. We've checked with the zoning ordinances. We're not close to water or whatever the world that they care about, so that if they come and do something, they're protected. So it's really to cover their papers. All right, Sam.
It may be that this is actually kind of more correspondence. We've still got another note saying we need to renew our registration for the system for award management. I think Gabe was working with Ashley on doing that, so maybe this is a done deal, but just a reminder, we need to make sure we do it, because I think it expires the end of the month.
Okay, I can check with Ashley tomorrow.
And I'll just swing in the last item on our little short list here is, we had an issue with the right landing furnace, right landing house furnace, in that the service person for that had said he believed that the oil tank needed to be replaced. The right landing committee disagreed, did not think it needed to be done. And we did then ask a third party to actually do the servicing and give us their evaluation. And that third party also said that they did not think it needed to be replaced. That it's old and you could replace it, but it didn't have to be replaced. And so I think, Richard, since you're there listening, they backed you up.
Yes, I've had kitty litter underneath that tank for 2 years now, and there hasn't been a drop of oil in that kitty litter. So, and I've replaced probably about 50 tanks in my career as a service person, and they've all been a lot worse than this one ever has looked like. So I think
Richard,
it was good to have that confirmation from a third party. Thank you.
well, that also covered us, because he had said he'd gone to DEP or somewhere. We just needed to make sure we were covered. So my question for you is, how many cats have used that kitty litter?
None so far.
All right, last item on there is actually one that we needed to ask Ross about, and he's not here, and that's the status of the senior property tax abatement letters. There were letters that need to go out. Some of you probably applied for that, and wanting to know the status of that. So we'll ask next week. All right, without anything else, I'll make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. We're done at 8:38. That seemed like a long meeting. Oh, I forgot about these. Do we have to do it in the board meeting?
What's that?
46 here.
Yeah, we're supposed to.
All right,
We're gonna have to go back into session.
I screwed up. I forgot one item.
We're gonna go back in the session.
I forgot.
briefly.
One item. It's a triple item. Yeah, you can leave, but I forgot it was added at the last minute. We actually did 3 peer reviews last week.
You're actually ramp and flow.
Yeah. Yeah, the peer was already there. And so we need to provide licenses. We took minutes and did what all the legal things we're supposed to, and we need to present licenses or accept or propose licenses for these three. So the first one that we did was for Kennedy down on Cahill. So I make a motion that we approve this license. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
And we need to sign. So the minutes are we can sign afterwards. The second one that we have is for Gardner, which was Muddy Cove. Across from Jack Swanton's house. It was already a pier and ramp and float had been there, and then part of it got beat up and torn down, and they just are getting ready to put in a new one. So I'd like to make a motion that we provide a license to
Replace.
I'm trying to think of who the person is. Yeah, Andrew Gardner. Thank you. You didn't have my glasses on. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
You don't see a mouse, right there.
Yeah, but I don't have my glasses.
Oh, the glasses from, okay.
See, lots of blurry stuff. And the third one was Jim Bernard. I do remember that one. He's on
Main road, well,
Andrews.
yeah.
Andrews Road. Okay, and so I'd like to make a motion that we present a license to Jim Bernard and Deborah Gadaro. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
All right. And as soon as this is signed, I will make another motion that we now adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you for hanging in there. Yeah, I need to get this to. So here are the minutes. This is the only one that I need to click on it.
So.
And I have everything in the folder. I have the license, the